Welcome to another episode of the Retirepreneur Podcast. I'm your host with this week's executive summary for busy entrepreneurs building their second act business. Today's episode is designed for maximum impact in minimum time.
Right, and we have a really fascinating deep dive today.
We do, because, imagine you spend 30 years climbing the corporate ladder.
Oh, yeah. The late nights, the politics.
Exactly. You sacrifice your evenings, you navigate all that corporate structure, and you finally reach a level of real authority. But when you look ahead to your next chapter, your options usually look pretty terrible.
Yeah, the default path basically gives you two choices.
Right. You either take a massive pay cut for a lower stress job, or, well, you start a chaotic full-time consulting hustle.
Where you are constantly having to hunt for your next meal.
Exactly. It is exhausting just thinking about it.
Okay.
But for today's deep dive, we are looking at a hidden third option.
Which is so needed.
Yeah. We are focusing on source material from Kurt Rose and his platform, Retirepreneur. Now, Kurt is a 63-year-old CPA and a former chief financial officer.
And I think the key here is how he positions himself. He acts as a peer guide for corporate veterans who want to build second act income without risking their retirement security.
Right. The best part is that he isn't playing the omniscient guru.
Oh, definitely not.
He is just a professional who is literally one chapter further down the exact road you are on. He just documents his process in real time.
And that grounded approach is precisely why his material is so useful.
Yeah, no fluff.
Right, no fluff. Kurt built this platform to figure out his own transition. So today, we are looking at his specific analysis on building a fractional executive practice.
Okay, so our mission today is to extract 3 highly actionable insights. We want the practical mechanics.
Yeah, the real numbers, the target market, and the exact strategy you can use to see if this model fits your analytical background.
So let's jump into the first insight. We should probably start by fixing a massive structural misconception.
Oh, insulting trap.
Yes. When a 30-year corporate director or a VP leaves their organization, they almost always assume that working independently just automatically means they are a consultant.
Right, they use the words interchangeably, which is, frankly, a huge mistake.
Because it dictates everything.
It does. That assumption fundamentally limits how you spend your time and how you actually generate revenue. I mean, consulting and fractional work are entirely different business models.
So break that down for us. What is the actual difference?
Well, a consultant gets hired for a defined project. You have a strict timeline and a very specific deliverable.
Like an audit report or a strategic plan.
Exactly. The company has a problem, you come in, you analyze it, you hand over a document, and once you deliver that output, the engagement just ends.
The client takes it to implement themselves.
Right, and then you have to go find a brand new client to replace that lost income. It is highly episodic.
The best way I can clarify that distinction is by looking at property maintenance.
Oh, that is a good way to look at it.
Yeah, think of a consultant like a contractor you hire to fix a very specific plumbing leak.
Right, they show up, patch the pipe, you pay them, and they drive away.
Exactly. But a fractional executive is way more like the property manager.
Yes.
You are there to ensure the entire building runs smoothly month after month.
That analogy perfectly captures the structural difference. A fractional executive is hired to take ownership of an ongoing function.
So you aren't an outsider dropping in to give a fancy presentation.
No, not at all. You become a part-time embedded member of the leadership team. You sit in on the weekly management meetings. You hold accountability for the actual outcomes over time.
And you operate on a steady monthly retainer.
Exactly. The founder doesn't ask what you recommend they do. They ask what you are actively doing to manage the function.
Okay, but let's talk about those founders for a second. Because if you spent your career at a Fortune 500 company, you might be picturing a massive enterprise buying this service.
Which is the wrong target completely.
Right. So who is actually writing these retainer checks?
You are looking at privately held businesses. Companies generating between $2 million and $25 million in annual revenue.
Okay, so mid-sized, like regional manufacturers or e-commerce brands.
Yeah, or professional service. Let's use a commercial landscaping company as an example.
Okay.
Maybe the founder started with one truck and, was just brilliant at sales. Now they are doing $12 million a year. But their back office is an absolute disaster.
Well, they probably don't actually know their profit margins on individual contracts.
Exactly. They're growing rapidly but bleeding cash. They desperately need a peer-level financial executive to step in, implement proper job costing, and stabilize the operation.
So the founder can keep selling.
Right.
But I'm guessing a $12 million landscaping company Can't just absorb a $200,000 base salary for a full-time C-suite leader.
No, it would wreck their cash flow.
Right.
They have a massive gap between their operational needs and their payroll capacity. And that gap is exactly where the fractional executive lives.
And the math behind filling that gap is pretty compelling, isn't it?
It really is. Most fractional engagements run about 8 to 10 hours per week per client.
Wait, really? Just 8 to 10 hours?
Yeah. And for that time commitment, you are generating between $3,000 and $12,000 a month on retainer.
Wow.
It depends on the scope of the work, of course. But if we look at experienced fractional CFOs, they routinely charge $200 to $350 per hour.
I want to pause on the math because it really clarifies the lifestyle appeal here.
Oh, absolutely.
If you secure just 2 clients at $5,000 a month each, you generate $120,000 annually.
Right. And you do it working roughly a 20-hour week.
Which gives you complete control over your schedule.
Exactly. That 2-client model is what most fractional executives target. You can take a Tuesday afternoon off without asking for permission while still doing high-level strategic work.
But there is a mental hurdle here regarding title history that we need to address.
The imposter syndrome.
Yeah. We keep using the term fractional CFO or fractional chief operating officer. If someone listening spent their entire corporate career as a vice president of finance or a director of supply chain, they never held that formal C-suite title.
Right, so they feel hesitant to sell themselves as a chief anything.
Exactly. Does a former VP actually command the same respect and the same rates in this mid-market space?
Yes, they absolutely do. It goes back to understanding the psychology of the founder we just talked about.
The founder with the landscaping company.
Right. A founder running a mid-sized logistics company or landscaping firm, they do not care about corporate hierarchy.
They just care if the engine runs.
Exactly. A former VP of operations who managed an entire distribution division for a global corporation is more than qualified to serve as a fractional COO for a smaller company.
In fact, that VP probably managed a budget larger than the smaller company's entire gross revenue.
Oh, almost certainly. The founder just wants the expertise you spent decades perfecting. Functional ownership completely outweighs the specific title on your last business card.
Okay, so capability over the corporate badge.
Yes.
But knowing that you can make $10,000 a month working 20 hours a week is useless if the market doesn't understand what you actually do.
That is insight number 2, the positioning pivot.
This seems to be the trap most former executives fall into. They understand the math, but their positioning is completely broken. How do we fix that?
Well, the first step is recognizing what doesn't work. When people leave corporate life, their immediate instinct is to say something like, I have 30 years of corporate leadership experience.
Which sounds impressive to a peer.
Sure, but it is just a background statement. It describes your past, but it doesn't tell a prospective client what specific problem disappears when they hire you.
And background statements do not earn retainers.
Exactly. Proper positioning earns retainers.
So let's break down the actual mechanics of proper positioning. What needs to be in a statement to make a founder actually reach out to you?
Your positioning statement must explicitly name 3 elements: the exact client, the specific problem, and the concrete outcome.
Just those 3?
Yes. If you can't articulate those 3 things in 2 sentences, your positioning is simply not ready for the market. It is way too vague.
Kurt Rose provides a great example of this in his own practice, doesn't he?
He does. Kurt has an extensive background. He ran finance for a startup small business lender. He founded a home building company.
He has decades of broad financial leadership.
Right. But he doesn't go to the market pitching 40 years of general financial acumen.
What does he pitch?
He uses a highly targeted 2-sentence statement. He says, I help founders understand what their numbers actually mean before they walk into a bank or an investor meeting.
See, honestly, for someone who spent 3 decades climbing the ladder, narrowing the focus, that tightly feels incredibly risky.
I hear that all the time.
Because in the corporate world, broad competence was always rewarded. You wanted to be known as the reliable person who could handle any disaster the company threw your way.
Right. You were the generalist problem solver.
Yeah. So picking one very specific problem to highlight, it feels like you are leaving money on the table. Does being that specific alienate potential clients?
It absolutely alienates people, and you have to understand that filtering people out is precisely the point.
Wait, really? That is the goal?
Yes. Positioning is not meant to be a wide net that catches everyone. When a construction company owner is sweating bullets because the bank is about to ask for their debt service coverage ratio.
And they have no idea what that means.
Exactly. They are terrified. They don't want a generalist who is pretty good at a lot of things. They want a specialist who cures that exact anxiety.
Okay, I see. When Kurt says he fixes that specific problem, he isn't just selling a spreadsheet.
No. He is selling confidence in a high-stakes moment.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that level of specificity is actually the primary mechanism that drives your rates up.
Because you're a premium asset.
Right. A fractional COO who says they scale manufacturing operations from $5 million to $25 million commands a significantly higher retainer than someone pitching themselves as just a general project manager.
You stop being a commodity.
Exactly.
So you filter out the noise to find the highest paying signal. But once you have that laser-focused pitch, you actually have to put it in front of the people experiencing the headache.
Which brings us to the third insight, the pipeline reality check.
Yeah, this seems to be the hurdle that stops most analytical professionals in their tracks.
The data across the independent consulting space confirms this completely. The hardest part of this work is not delivering the service.
Right. You already know how to run a finance department.
Exactly. The hardest part is business development.
Because inside a large corporation, the infrastructure fed you work.
Right. Your job was to deliver results while the internal clients magically appeared.
You had a steady salary, and an entirely different department handled the marketing.
But now you are the business development department. You have to plan for the timeline financially before you give up your salary.
So what does that timeline actually look like?
Well, direct outreach to your warm professional network is the most effective starting point.
Like former employers or colleagues?
Yes, and bankers, attorneys, accountants. But you have to do it correctly.
How so?
You don't just take a commercial banker to coffee and ask if they know anyone hiring. You take them to coffee and clearly articulate your 2-sentence positioning statement.
You tell them exactly the specific headache you cure.
Right. Bankers and accountants are constantly talking to mid-market founders who complain about their operational nightmares. When you position yourself as the solution, those professionals become your primary referral nodes.
And what kind of timeline does that warm approach offer?
That can typically land a client in 60 to 90 days.
Okay, that is manageable. But what if you don't have that warm network?
That is the big question.
Say you're relocated for retirement, or your entire network is locked inside a massive enterprise that just doesn't hire fractional mid-market executives.
That changes the timeline drastically. Starting completely cold in a new market often takes 6 to 12 months to reach a steady client base.
6 to 12 months. That is a terrifying gap in income to plan for.
It is.
Are there alternative ways to build that pipeline faster? I mean, I know there are placement networks operating in this space now.
Yes, placement firms offer a very legitimate shortcut for professionals who lack a concentrated warm network.
Firms like CFO Alliance or Sirius Executives.
Or B2B CFO, yeah. They exist specifically to connect experienced fractional leaders with mid-market companies.
Yeah.
But, you still have to sell yourself to the firm.
Because they have to protect their reputation.
Right. They handle the business development, but they rigorously vet their executives. You have to prove that your 30 years of corporate experience actually translates into practical solutions for a scrappier company.
I have to question the economics of using a middleman, though.
I get that.
They obviously take a cut of the retainer. When you are trying to establish your own independent business, isn't it a massive mistake to give up your profit margin right out of the gate?
It requires a fundamental shift in how you view the cost. You have to evaluate this analytically.
Okay.
Yes, using a placement firm reduces your effective hourly rate, sometimes significantly, and you sacrifice some control over client selection.
Then what is the strategic advantage of taking the hit on your margin?
You are trading margin to compress the timeline. You go from 0 clients to 1 paying client in a matter of weeks, instead of bleeding cash for 6 to 12 months trying to build a network from scratch.
So you are effectively paying a premium to access a pipeline you don't yet have the capacity to build yourself.
Exactly. You are buying speed and immediate cash flow.
It becomes a strategic cost of doing business early on.
Right. Rather than just a penalty on your earnings, it allows you to start doing the actual work and generating revenue while you learn the ropes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The best path depends entirely on your starting position.
Absolutely. Warm network means direct outreach. Cold network means a placement firm is a logical shortcut.
We have spent a lot of time on the mechanics today. We covered the math, the two-sentence positioning, and pipeline management.
The practical stuff.
Yeah, but there is an emotional layer to this transition that we should probably acknowledge. Leaving a 30-year corporate identity behind to start selling your own expertise is a massive psychological shift.
It really is. The corporate world, well, it institutionalizes us.
You get used to the title, the steady paycheck.
The IT department fixing your laptop, the clear chain of command. Stepping away from that infrastructure requires a totally new mindset.
Fractional executive work kind of sits right between returning to the corporate grind and taking on unpredictable consulting gigs.
It offers the ongoing relationships of a corporate role, but without the internal politics or the arbitrary ceiling on your earning potential.
It sounds like an ideal scenario for an analytical professional who wants flexibility, but it clearly demands that you treat yourself differently.
It demands that you treat yourself as a standalone business from day one. You are no longer an employee seeking a flexible arrangement.
You are a business owner selling a premium service.
Exactly. Which means the imposter syndrome we talked about earlier is a direct threat to your revenue.
Because if you don't believe in your value,
you will never be able to look a founder in the eye and ask for a $5,000 monthly retainer.
You have to internalize the value of your decades of experience, the mistakes you survived, the crises you managed.
That historical knowledge is incredibly rare to a mid-market company.
So before we wrap up, if someone listening realizes they fit this profile perfectly, what is the very next thing they should focus on?
Well, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to mull over during the rest of your walk.
Okay.
Before you sit down to draft your positioning statement, and certainly before you leave your current position, you need to ask yourself a brutally honest question. Are you genuinely ready to build a revenue-generating business from the ground up, complete with marketing, pipeline management, and the occasional rejection?
Or are you simply looking for a corporate job that comes with a more flexible schedule?
Exactly. That distinction determines your trajectory.
Because if you just want a flexible corporate job, this model will be an exercise in frustration.
You will resent the business development work. But if you are ready to own a business where the product is your expertise, fractional executive work might be your most lucrative chapter yet.
That's your executive briefing for this week. Subscribe to the Retirepreneur newsletter at retirepreneur.com for the full written version of every topic we cover. Until next week, keep building.